we'll discuss the economics of water. Why are we discussing the economics of water? Because water is an essential resource. So, if your water supply outstrips your demand and you have surplus water, there is never a problem. But most of the time, we experience a circumstance where the water demand is outstripping the supply. And this is happening in most of our agrarian states as well as in most of our cities. So I cannot take the entire macro perspective of India and discuss each and every city with you because this is a short lecture. And we have 63 cities in India. Remember this number. 63 cities which have a population of more than 1 million or 10 lakh people. 1 million is 10 lakh. So we have 63 cities which have a population of more than 1 million or 10 lakh people. Now in these cities there is a high demand for a natural resource called water and their supply is short. Let us take the example of a city which has surplus supply of water and let us see how it is managing it so that you can get an understanding of how big the problem really is. But before we go into that example, we should know how much water do we really have. So India is home to 140 crore plus people. This is 1/6 of the world population. So 1/6 of the world population would mean 20% of the world's people live in India. But when you have 20% of the world's people living in India, you should expect that you will also have 20% of the world's resources like water. But we have only 3% of the world's fresh water, with which we have to provide for 20% of the population of the world. Now, we shall go into the city-specific data so that you understand better how it is that we will be doing, what it is that we are suffering from, or how it is that we are managing our water specifically. So let's take the example of a city called Pune. In Pune, we have a water surplus. And by water surplus, it means that we have more water than is required to support the population of Pune. How much water do we have? So, as per the dams data in Pune or the irrigation department data, Pune takes 173 crore liters or 1,732 million liters per day from the dams. But see the fun, Pune's population is about 1 crore. Despite this, Pune takes out 30 crore liters or 300 million liters per day from wells, aquifers, bore wells, all of this. Alright? Which means that totally Pune consumes close to 200 crore liters of water per day. Now this 200 crore liters of water per day divided by 1 crore people is approximately 200 plus liters of water per person per day in Pune. Can you believe such a high rate of consumption really takes place? Well, it does not. What really happens is that we have got a situation where close to this 173 crore liters or 1,732 million liters per day or 173 crore liters per day is what the dams supply as per irrigation department to Pune. But more than 40 crore liters gets wasted, and this gets wasted because it gets wasted in transmission and what you know as distribution losses, or of people leaving their taps open, things like that. So that is the reason why this gets wasted, 40 crore liters. In the meanwhile, you are taking out 30 crore liters from groundwater, like I explained in the previous segment. So technically, if you withdraw 30 crore out of this 40 crore, Pune has enough fresh water supply to supply more than 200 liters per day to each of its residents. And everybody will be quite comfortable. But that doesn't happen. This 30 crore liters is being pulled out of the precious groundwater which has taken thousands of years to sequester. That groundwater is being accessed by bore wells, and some of these bore wells are approximately 1000 feet deep. Since there is no standard or no license or no permission or no count of who can drill a bore well and go to what depth exactly to extract water, all this precious groundwater is being taken away and being used just because the municipal authority or the government of the day is not able to manage this water resource properly. So even after having surplus water, cities can make mistakes to ensure that this becomes such a big problem. Now, let's look at what happens to the water once it is processed, once it is used. What is estimated is that about 80% of the water that is used becomes sewage. That is your dirty water which you throw away. So if you are looking at 200 crore liters of water or 2000 mld of water which is being used every day, it is considered that approximately 1600 mld or 80% or 160 crore liters of water is going to become what you know as sewage. Now, to your surprise, and not mine because I am aware of this data, we have the capacity to process only 30% of the sewage in Pune. So, you can say about 50 crore liters of water gets processed, and 50 crore liters of water sewage, once it is processed, it is again released into the river. Meanwhile, 110 crore liters of water, the balance out of 50 minus 160, 110 crore liters of water is released into the river as raw sewage. This raw sewage, is a killer. Why is it a killer? Because it is toxic, and all this toxic waste flows into the river, and once it flows into the river, it kills virtually all the species in the river. So we used to have something like 65 species of fish way back in 1960s, and the river you could swim in the river, and now you have barely 2. The dissolved oxygen that is required for bacteria to process this sewage is normally at, let us say, 2 milligrams or some such thing. It's supposed to be the BOD or the dissolved oxygen is supposed to be 2, but about 98% of the dissolved oxygen is like not there. It's just not there because sewage has come and overpowered it. So you have BOD levels of 12 and whatever 15, etc. Anyways, that apart, what needs to be done ideally is that all this sewage which emanates out of this 160 crore liters of sewage, this needs to be trapped. It needs to be repurposed. This sewage water, once it is trapped and treated, it can get repurposed into a lot of things. It can get repurposed into industry use, It can get repurposed into landscaping, it can get repurposed into washing roads, it can get repurposed into construction or hard construction purposes, it can get repurposed into roads. Lot of applications are available for this to get repurposed. So the first thing that will happen is we will optimize this 200 crore liters of water, which is 2000 million liters per day. The second thing that will happen is we can repurpose the sewage and use it for all the applications that otherwise we are using fresh water for. And the third thing that will happen, very, very importantly, is that the river, because you are not dumping any poison and sewage into it, it will come back to life by itself. The species will come back, the dissolved oxygen ratios will again stabilize, the bacteria will start coming back, they will be able to amortize all of this, and everything will come back to life. What is actually happening is something totally different. This is what is necessary in a city which is water surplus. But what is happening is that projects have been built with the intention of taking away whatever resources we already have and creating more stress for what we do not. For instance, what we have got happening here is something called a riverfront development. What does this riverfront development do? Let us say this is the river bank as how we know it, and these are the flood lines. So let's say if you have a flood which happens maybe once in 25 years or so, this will be the high point at where the water will come. And then right now, because all your sewage is being dumped into this river, it has become some sort of a over-glorified drain, over-glorified sewer. What they are trying to do now, and they are saying that this is what is going to fix the problem, but actually I do not know if they have studied the problem well enough to know that this will not fix the problem, is that they've called something called riverfront development, where they are going to dump debris into the river and take away 38% of the river bank. So what they are insisting is that since this will heighten the cavity, there will be no flood impact because they are giving it some sort of a vertical rise. I do not know if the math is perfect on this, because you see, with nature, you do not know until nature shows up at your doorstep. But we have had circumstances where there has been tremendous amount of rainfall in a single day, and the river without any concrete in it has not been able to carry the load. 18th of October in 2022, they had 108 millimeters of rainfall happen in a single day, just a couple of hours. And you had arterial roads which are abutting the river, like Ferguson College Road and Jangli Maharaj Road, etc., flooding over, and the water was taking its own sweet time getting back into the river system and getting drained out. So this has happened many times over in the month of October last year, and it has happened many times over previously too. Now what they're saying is they will do this thing and take away 38% of the river bank and also put in some sewage lines over here, interceptor lines is what they're calling it, and they will process the sewage and then dump it back into the river, and that should solve the problem. That is what they are saying. What is actually happening is that the plans that they have got, including whatever new sewage lines, etc., that they are proposing, that intends to take care of maybe at best 60% of the water. So out of about 160 crore liters of sewage, they will at best be able to take care of 100 crore liters of sewage, and the balance 60 will still flow into the river as raw sewage. Now, if you're going to have that, it really makes no sense, because then the river just continues to become an over-glorified gutter. This is one of the problems. The other problem is that this water level is estimated to rise by 5 feet. This is their estimate, not mine. The government consultants have an estimation that the water levels will rise by 5 feet. If it rises by 5 feet, it could mean kilometers of inundation all around. it could mean that all the other places that are there by the riverbanks will get inundated by water. Besides that, what is a bigger problem is that once you occupy this bank, it is very difficult to restore the natural habitat over here. The trees, the riparian forests, etc. will all get cut down. Now, when you cut down the natural habitat over here and you block the springs going into the river, whatever natural sources of water is there going into the river, you kill the river's ability to rejuvenate itself. In such a circumstance, what happens is the river is perhaps never able to come back to life. What we should be doing ideally is managing our water resources better. What we are doing is pouring more concrete. I have estimated approximately 2.6 crore tons of concrete into the river to reclaim close to 1545 acres, and everybody is calling this some sort of fancy riverfront development scheme or some such thing, which is a very stupid way to deal with a very obvious problem. But unfortunately, governments all over the world jump perhaps before they think. So this is one more of this way in which you can see governments making mistakes all over the world, and especially so in India. How much is this project going to cost? It is going to cost 5,000 crores. Now, do we actually need a 5,000 crore project for solving a basic problem like providing water to everybody and ensuring that the sewage gets repurposed so that the sewage or water gets recycled and it doesn't flow into the river and make it toxic? Are you aware how many such projects are being planned in India? Some tell me 119 such projects are being planned across 32 cities. We are already suffering from a water shortage, and they are planning so many projects across so many cities to pour so much concrete and do precisely what I don't understand. Coming back to the economics of water, despite all the data being what it is, there are 100 such projects or so it is being told to me, which are going to happen only along the length of the Ganga basin. I believe they tried to make a project over there, but the Ganga floodline took away whatever little work they had done. And that is the same thing that happened in Hyderabad with the Musi River, because of which they have decided to revisit the project, I think, in a different light. I do not know what they are going to do, but soon enough we shall all know. What we need to understand is that water for us, if you want to understand the economics of water, primarily, water for us is a scarce resource. It is not a resource which we can abundantly use and continuously use and expect that it will last forever. There is a newer problem, and that problem is called subduction. If you have seen what took place in Joshimath, for instance, what happened in Joshimath is they drilled a hole and they hit an aquifer and they took out water. This is what you know as a bore or whatever else in North India, especially. You know all of this. So what is happening is, let us say this is the surface area, this is your aquifer. You drill a hole into this and you take out water. Sooner or later, the water reduces, the water level in this aquifer reduces, and this much space gets created. This could lead to the land sinking, and in certain cases, the land collapsing. So, the Joshimath example is what we end up giving to a lot of people, because that is the best example that people understand, or it is very easily understood by a lot. What is happening here, very importantly, we should understand that all of North India is dependent on groundwater. There are an unlimited amount of bore wells which are being dug to provide water to people. And now in Punjab and Haryana, you have many incidences of sinking and subduction that are taking place. In Delhi, already 61% of the groundwater has been withdrawn and it has gone. It is very difficult now to fix this. The only way to fix this is to leave this alone and let the groundwater runoff, monsoon after monsoon, recharge these aquifers. But that is not happening. Instead, we are sinking in more bowls and pulling out more water. Because of which, these sinking and subduction and collapse incidences keep increasing. If we do not look after our water, it will not look after us. So what we need, importantly, is to rejuvenate our rivers, and that can happen only by repurposing our sewage. We have to relearn to reuse all the sewage that we generate for all the other applications that we have. One of the biggest countries, or the best countries at this, with the best technologies in being able to do this, is Israel. The other country that is able to do this is Australia. They have done a good job of managing their water, and that is why they do not face these kind of doomsday scenarios that we are facing. On the other hand, in the fringes in all our cities, in the slums, people living in villages, people living in bereft districts, you will see long queues of people walking up to tankers for water. You will see a lot of people fighting over water as a resource, especially during these hot, arid, dry summer months. At the same time, having said that, you will see a lot of tankers coming in into posh and established neighborhoods for giving them water because the municipality or whatever is not able to provide them the necessary water supply or the necessary water resources that they need. I will explain this contradiction again in the economics of FSI in my next lecture. But for now, I hope you have understood the economics of water, and I hope you will have seen what is it that the economics of water, what kind of a crisis it is that we are facing as a country. Thank you very much.